Good afternoon
Hey, good morning.
for the West Coast.
For the West Coast. West Coast centric. Hey, Raffi, good morning.
Good morning.
Excellent. Okay, let's give it a minute or two to get to a quorum. Here we go. Good morning, Cyan. Good morning, Robert. Good morning, Randall. Randall, you made it back. We saw you in San Diego.
I did. It was a great trip.
Fantastic. Hey, Cyan, good to see you in person in San Diego. That was great.
Good morning.
Let's see. Good morning, Afshin, calling from his Starship.
Hey, Reza. How are you?
You're waiting for Boeing to send a
No.
a shuttle
to avoid Boeing.
in all flights.
Yeah, in all flights.
Yes. Joe, good morning. Good to see you. Welcome.
Good morning.
You
Good
made
to
it
see
back
me.
from San Diego. That's great.
I did. We had an amazing week this week. I'm sure Reza will tell you all about it. But
You're on the agenda for giving us an IIW conference report later
Great.
on. Okay.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, fantastic. Here we go. Some new faces. Good morning, Drea. Good morning, Setya. Good morning, Julia. Myra, great picture of Raffi. He dug up from the archives.
I have more on the other slide once he's presenting.
Okay, Emiliano, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so look, our quorum is 20, and but we typically end up with double that by the stragglers. But let me start with the preamble. Myra, we've got a fantastic agenda ahead of us on the call today, and we'll intro our guest speaker in a minute. Let me tell you, it's been a very busy week, and the following weeks are also going to be busy and busier as we work towards the rolling out of the beta, and as we come up to a season of conferences. Conference season for me in the kind of the for-profit world used to be the sort of Q1 time frame. There seems to be in this space a series of conferences that we have to attend. I think the IIW, Internet Identity Week conference is going to be a big one. It's going to be important, and that starts off the day before that with Docs Project VRM day, and we are toying with the idea. We haven't pulled the trigger on it, of actually having our summit, the Kwaai Summit, as the sort of end cap of that series of conferences, and so that'll be November 1st. But just put a pin in that for now. I'm going to introduce our guest speaker. It's Raffi Krikorian. Raffi, I'm so pleased to have you on the Kwaai Weekly Public Meeting. This is Weekly Public Meeting number 57, and we normally have you guest speakers, but we're so honored to have Raffi. Raffi was introduced to me by Brian Bellendorf, and Brian Bellendorf was introduced to me by Doc Searles. I know Doc might join the call later on, but these are I on LinkedIn I posted that this is a sage of our digital world, and Raffi's had positions at Twitter and at Uber, but he's also now on the boards of numerous organizations. In fact, Myra, what you've done some
background
review, the background on Raffi. Why don't you just give us his rap sheet?
Well, there's so many things to talk about. I think first, of course, because you're the CTO of Emerson Collective. I recently looked at your podcast, Technically Optimistic, which was really interesting, and I like how it's kind of easy for everyone to follow along when it comes to security and AI and everything in that breadth. Obviously, responsible for the first self-driving fleet at Uber, CTO of the DNC, which was not something I knew, but very cool. And I want to know more about your philanthropic goals. I know you're on the board chair for MEDIC, and also for the TUMO Center for Creative Technologies, I believe, which focuses on education. So I think I probably covered 1/10 of everything, but we're very excited to hear from you.
Fantastic. So over to you, Raffi. I'll give you co-host privilege, so you should be able to share if you have a deck, and we'd love to hear from you.
I appreciate it, Reza, and I appreciate that, Maya. I mean, Reza said, one, this is a pretty intimidating group to talk in front of, but Reza said I could talk about anything I wanted. So I'm just going to talk about AI, data security, and privacy for a bit. So like Maya mentioned, I'm currently the CTO at an organization called the Emerson Collective. We're let's call it a philanthropic organization founded by Laurene Powell Jobs, the widow of Steve Jobs. And we work on a whole slew of issue areas, whether it be immigration, education, climate, or health. I mean, it all really comes down to how do we create a world where people can live out their fullest potential. And I run the technology group here, which is a 50-person team of engineers, technologists, product managers, designers, data scientists, IT folk, because we are trying to make a dent in how is technology used across the philanthropic sector. I normally talk about these things as like a three-legged stool. Of like technology, the way it's built today is usually driven by the tech companies pushing most of their agenda. And look, I'm a former tech company native. And in fact, one day maybe I'll go back to being a tech company person. And so I have a lot of respect for my colleagues who build these huge commercial companies that fundamentally make our lives in a lot of ways better, more efficient, more effective. But they exist in a particular incentive model. And so what I've been trying to do is figure out how to balance out that incentive model of like right now, like I said, I tried to describe it as this three-legged stool where technology companies are one leg of that stool, but the other two are potentially policymakers and government who would try to enter into some kind of bi-directional relationship there, but also civil society. So people like us, whether it be direct individuals or philanthropists overall, trying to represent what it makes sense for regular people as part of this equation. And right now, the stool is like fundamentally imbalanced. Like right now, a lot of the conversation is driven from the technology companies. So I'm trying to do work here at the Emerson Collective to try to bring up both on the policymaker side, how do we equip them to be a better part of this tri-legged conversation, but also how do we work with people like you all who are builders or people who are in the communities, people who are down at the grassroots level to try and make sure that we get to this balance. And this all stems from a theory that I had maybe about 2 years ago. It's not a novel theory, but it's just where the Emerson Collective is coming from, of just like these emerging technologies have a natural tendency because of incentive mechanisms and somewhat to divide our society and not put our society together. And so we are, at least we on the technology team here, are trying to figure out everything we can to bend that curve early, to make it more useful to our society, make sure we're building with our values in mind so that in 10 years, it doesn't become a philanthropic problem with marginalized groups or disaffected groups who've had their data ripped away from them or have had issues come up because of the way these systems are built. And I don't think this is a hypothetical risk. One of the grantees that we work with right now is literally trying to build indigenous data collectives, trying to figure out ways to collect all DNA information, in this particular case in Hawaii, and try to collect DNA information and give control of that information back to the community. So it's not just people who are trying to train models on this, not just pharmaceutical companies who are trying to build based on this data without somehow reciprocating to these communities. So like, how do we empower these folks? So that is an example of if we don't work on this today, in 10 years, these communities would have given effectively their most personal pieces of data, their genetic code, to these models, to all these to these companies, and not gotten anything back in return, not gotten their community better, not gotten a financial return. So trying to reason through what it would be like to fix that. And so I've been working on a podcast recently to tell these stories, like Maya mentioned, that we call Technically Optimistic. Season 1 was purely on this intersection of AI and humanity, with this notion that, we were doing this introspection of tech, power, and humanity, with this notion that power has shifted over the generations, right? Like back when we were cavemen, power was focused on people who were the strongest. Then power became focused on the people who were kings and queens. Then power got shifted to the people who are politicians. Power then got shifted to the people with the most money. And now power is being shifted again to the people who deploy technology. And so like trying to understand what that shift of power really looks like, and how do we balance it back out again? How do we make sure that the people who wield this power are doing it in our best interest, but also how do we make sure that our best interest is also being encoded in the system? People like you all could be building these systems with our values in mind. And actually, one of the things that's missing from this list is I'm actually on the board of the Mozilla Foundation, specifically because I actually really think open source is one of those really strong ways that we can make sure power gets shifted in the right place. So as part of the podcast, we talked to some phenomenal people. In season 1, we spoke to like Maria Reza, the Nobel laureate. We spoke to Bishop Paul Tai. It turns out the Vatican has a person who's in charge of emerging technology, so we spoke to him for a while. We spoke to a Buddhist monk. We spoke to Justine Bateman, who was the actress and producer and writer who is leading a lot of the writer strikes against AI. And we spoke to Sal Khan, who's building all these technologies for Khan Academy. So we spent all this time just trying to explore all these intricacies of AI in our society. And then in season 2, we focused specifically on data privacy, because we kept on hearing this one theme over and over, that you can't talk about AI without talking about data. So then we spoke to people like Jen Easterly, who heads the cybersecurity agency. We spoke to Cory Doctorow, the author and activist who works on the EFF. We spoke to professors at Harvard. We spoke to all these people trying to really understand what data privacy came. We actually spoke to Senator Blumenthal, all these elected officials also, to talk about COSA and others, because we're really trying to make sure that people like us can have a nuanced understanding, maybe not us, general population can have a nuanced understanding of how these technologies are impacting our world, so we can just make better choices. Like I don't want a whole slew of people to be accelerationists, but I also don't want a whole slew of people to be doomsdayers. Like there are nuances here. We all understand why speed limits are set the way they are, right? Like they actually keep us safe, except for fun times on German Autobahn. Like they keep us safe. They're set in a particular way, so when you're making a turn on a highway, you don't skid off them, etc. My mother-in-law understands why speed limits are a good thing, but my mother-in-law doesn't understand the pros and cons of a video doorbell in front of their house. And so like it's those type of things that I want regular people to have more power and agency around, so that they can make the right decisions and they can try to send the appropriate signals to the people who are building this technology. So like what I'm really trying to do is activate more and more people like us to really understand things like, these systems that we are building are really data hungry. Like we all know this, they're scraping the internet, but like once they're done with that, it's really us who's the next source of all the data. So how do we start making sure we have the right guardrails in front of regular people so that they're not just part of a bigger machine? They clearly amplify bias and discrimination. So how do we tell those stories so that people who are making policy and people who are building these technologies understand it? When I was a lot more naive, I actually ran Uber's self-driving car team. We actually, in 1 year, got a set of Ford Fusions on the road, picking up passengers, self-driving and everything. But, the first version of the car that we built, we called it a data collection vehicle. The data collection vehicle we deployed into Tempe, Arizona. It recorded everything as a way to train our simulations and train our models so we can start building self-driving algorithms. If you know Tempe, Arizona, the roads are really wide, the sun's always shining. It's a pretty good place to learn how to drive. We brought those cars to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I was based, and we trained an algorithm to put the cars on the road. The cars literally didn't recognize Black pedestrians. Like it just didn't compute. They recognized white pedestrians, but black pedestrians, they just couldn't classify them properly. Didn't hit them, but just didn't know what to do with them. And it turns out Tempe, Arizona just doesn't have very many black people walking in the streets. And so like, how do we like inform and better educate engineers that they need to be thinking about these type of things? We need more transparency in these systems. We need more public education. You know, Finland in 2018 did this whole experiment where they tried to get 1% of their population educated on AI. This is 2018, before this generative wave. And they actually got 10% of the population to watch webinars about AI. And now Finland, for all practical purposes, is the highest per capita AI startups in the world. So how do we do that? How do we do things like that for the United States? And then how do we really push for more open source AI, fully open source AI, things like what AI2 is up to with their Almo model, where they like released a data set, they released the source code, they released the weights, they released their evaluation procedures, so that we get real trust around these technologies that are going. So like, I get really excited to talk to people like you, because like you guys are actually on the forefront. You guys are actually building things. You're actually doing stuff. And I think that like, you actually have the power of like where we need to go to like really lead what regular people think and what regular people are doing. So I just like word vomited for 10 minutes or so, but maybe I will stop. And if there, Reza, I guess like I could take questions. I'm not sure what we want to do.
Sure. In fact, you know, as we normally do, hands up for questions. But before the first question comes up, and we're hearing an echo coming back. But before the first question, let's let me thank first of all Raffi for giving us a chat about what you're doing. A couple of things that you mentioned. You said that we're at the forefront. We are the ones that are doing that can make a change. In fact, the first note I sent you was a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, and I'll dig that up in a second. But it's the thing that I tell the team, that there's no cavalry coming. You are the cavalry.
You are the people we're waiting for. Like
right.
That's
and you're empowered to bend the arc of history. AI is heading off on a dangerous direction. Don't just grumble about it and moan.
Go build. Go
build. Yeah, organize, build, and this is what we do. Look, when I shook out my Rolodex, it was largely of technical folk. When we look at the organization, Kwaai is now at a membership of over 600. 80% of our activity is in development. The rest is spread between research and policy drafting. You are the ones empowered to make the change. So I'm so grateful to all of the first of all, the thought leaders that joined, but also the folks that are just writing code, building the PIOS, the personal AI operating system, and the people that are reimagining what AI could look like if it was human-centric, if it was elevating the human, giving us a 10x improvement, rather than the sort of rinse and repeat trying to get a 10x improvement for corporations.
The thing that we need more of, frankly, and what you guys do well, is more storytelling around the aspirational future that we could be living in, right? Like everyone I talk to around AI either has some form of this, like the corporations are just going to do it, or Terminator, or all this other shit. Like you guys actually tell an aspirational future. That's actually one of the most important things. And then building that aspirational future, like it's like such a powerful thing.
Okay, Myra, why don't you moderate the questions?
Sure. Let's see who we have. Satya.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you a question about like data privacy. So a lot of these applications and like I guess programs like to like what you were saying, scrape like web data or your information, but they do ask you for like audio video permissions and like TOS. So is there like a better way for them to inform you of like what they're going to do? Because a lot of us don't like to read that stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, it turns out no one reads this stuff, right? There's actually a lot of evidence that these pop-ups more annoy people than actually make a dent in getting permission set correctly. I think this is actually one of the biggest challenges. Like, how do we create the right UX, UI metaphors that we all can be using? Like, someone needs to actually really step up and actually be a really good designer here and actually propose a bunch of things. But like, the path that we're on is on a really slippery slope of just like clicking allow. Because imagine a world, I was having this conversation with a researcher. Like, imagine a world where someone asks you, like, can you share your battery, how much battery you have left on your phone? And you're just going to hit accept on it because you're just like, I don't really care about my battery. But imagine a world where Uber's pricing was dependent on the amount of battery you have left. Like, Uber could jack their price through the roof if you only had 1% battery left, because you have to hit that button before it dies. And so like, people just don't understand these fine-grained permissions that we're giving up, even though we need fine-grained permissions. So I don't have a good answer for that. It's a really great question. We need to activate a whole bunch of UX, UI designers to really be thinking about how we manage that relationship.
Thank you.
Jean.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
If I understood, we have a globalized world that we are trying to refederalize in some way, and it clearly asks for a lot of of education. I think where the camel's back breaks is we are so late in advertising, not educating, but just sharing information, helping people, because they are not dumb. They are poorly informed and in a super complex world. Well, I'm working in video games, and my purpose was somehow at the beginning, oh, let's leverage on that. I can basically spread propaganda to kids. Sadly, at the moment, most of my activities are how do we steal their pocket money efficiently? So yeah, it's kind of disengaging. And I wanted to get maybe some rays of hopes or good news about how do you see ways or mediums or initiatives that could work in the sense of spreading awareness and helping people to be able to manage the complexity of the world around them.
Yeah, I mean, the experiment I actually am going to start. So I did 2 seasons of an audio podcast, and we're actually moving to TikTok. It won't be me because you shouldn't watch me on TikTok, but we're actually moving to a TikTok outlet, a strategy starting this year. So we're hoping to reach more people on those fronts. However, one of the other things I've always wanted to do is we need to, in the United States, I'm not sure where you're based in the United States, there's this tradition of having home economics in high schools or junior high schools. What if we revitalized home economics? What if we had a digital home economics instead, teaching you not just how to manage learning how to sew and being a plumber and all that stuff, but what if we taught you things like how to run a spreadsheet? How if we taught you things about digital literacy and privacy? What if we taught you all these things about the complexity of this digital world that you actually need to manage, but no one actually teaches you? So I think that schools are actually a pretty amazing outlet here. We're just not haven't just caught them up onto what the world looks like now. So I'm really personally excited about that outlet. Yeah. Okay.
We did have a question from, it looks like they raised their hand.
Okay, so on the specific question around you brought up that the face recognition or the computer vision did not recognize people of color crossing the zebra crossing, the crosswalk. This is an issue that was raised famously by Joy Buolamwini when she exited Google. And at that time, I was working at Real Networks, working on face recognition. And we took that problem on in the same vein as we say here, don't complain about it, actually figure out a solution. We set ourselves to try and eradicate the demographic bias from our face recognition stack. Face recognition we use all day long. We open up our phone by looking at the face. We open doors. There are many access control systems that have to use face recognition. So you, I like the point that you made early on about not simply denigrating the technology and saying, oh, okay, face recognition is bad, let's ban it, which is the knee-jerk reaction. Let's figure out how to engineer out the problems. And so we set about, that was one of our prime KPIs, and we actually got to the point where when NIST did the bake-off of 103 odd face recognition algorithms, we ended up scoring the least bias. Okay, so how do we do that? You do that by doing the hard work. You make sure that you don't just dial it in and say, okay, I'm going to have uncurated sample data. So your training data there, if it was drawn simply from Tempe, Arizona, probably wouldn't equitably have representation for all demographics. And so this is the way that we inadvertently engineer bias into our systems, and we should be very deliberate about being doing exactly the opposite. And that's still not one of the issues that is schooled in our AI training systems. So I thought maybe you'd maybe comment more practically on how do we engineer ethics into our AI.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that, like, if you look at the history, I mean, one, I completely agree with you. We also need tools. So, like, by default, developers are building unbiased data sets. Like right now, like, developers don't think about it, right? Like, that's part of the problem. It's like we need to educate them better, but we also need to give them tools so they have better defaults. Like the default practice of what they're working on should be an unbiased data set. But this is like a deep systemic issue, right? Like there's a reason why women have better outcomes medically if they're treated by women doctors. It's because like most of medical science is based around the male body, and so all this like deep-rooted biases are like everywhere through the system. And so like we need to figure out how to like unbias a whole bunch of things, but like specifically on technology, I would say that like, when computer science first came across on the field, it came out of the liberal arts portions of most universities. So a lot of people would think about computer science along with humanities and things like that. But right now, there's a huge, massive trend for computer science departments to sit alone. Like MIT, where I'm at, that's my alma mater, even now has a school of computing, right? So they just like basically push computer science to be its own thing because they think it's so important. But I think that kind of push that we're seeing is actually the opposite of what we need to happen. Like we actually need computer science and humanities and ethics to come closer together, not away from each other. And so like a lot of what I think about here at Emerson is also, how do we just change the problem sets that people work on within computer science? Like, why is all the problem sets about, like, they're not all, but I'm going to use a hyperbole, why are they all talking about optimizing ad systems? Like, why shouldn't we have social science questions as part of our problem set? We need to give people more visibility into, like, let's look at positively, more visibility into what the opportunities are for computer science alongside humanities, and not just like pull them apart so that people just don't think about it. Like right now, and there's a lot of other things we can be doing. Diverse teams would help out a lot, just getting more people thinking about these type of problems. Like, I don't know how many of you use Apple AirTags, but the instant Apple AirTags were deployed, all these women, and not just women, obviously, but all these subpopulations were starting to complain really heavily, like this is clearly going to be used to track us as it goes through the world. And I almost guarantee that team, although I'm a huge Apple fan, was not a diverse enough team, that they weren't thinking about they weren't bringing all these perspectives to game. So I think the band-aid right now is build the most diverse teams that we possibly can, so we can make sure we think about this just from different perspectives and figure out ways to merge these different perspectives in. But in the long run, we just need to fix also like how we're educating these future computer scientists, and like how do we make sure it's done, like, again, like you said, with ethics as its core, not being pulled away from those portions of the academy.
Okay. Thank you, Raffi. And I was going to just interject. That was exactly what I was thinking about when you mentioned diversity, because medicine largely trained on male subjects. And, you know, that definitely came to mind. But I think we have a question from Eunice first.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Raffi. Good to see you, Reza. I'm in the business of higher education. That's where I spent most of my career. And now I've been working for the last decade in L&D within tech companies. And what I'm hearing from my colleagues, and as I'm trying to do a comeback to education in the context of AI, is that the higher education has no clue where to go from here. Now they can't control what students do, and students can get a lot of assignment done on any of these AI engines. And I've been thinking, you mentioned earlier storytelling. I've been thinking, you know, using Bloom's taxonomy, you know, yes, AI can help with research, with understanding, with everything. But I think where higher education needs to go is really the focus on higher level of thinking and a higher level of deep thinking. And that can only work if AI can leave that alone. If AI cannot get into a place where also it becomes storytellers, where AI can also not help in terms of solving certain problems. And I don't know, you know, I'm not an engineer, but I wonder if there is a way to limit AI so that education continues to provide value for humanity and higher education continues to have a purpose beyond what technology can do.
I mean, it's a great question, and sort of like that's top of mind for a lot of people, like you said. I mean, I guess like how I think about it a lot is that, you know, a lot of these what you're talking about, a lot of this is still choices to be made by us and by us as a society. Like, I think there's a lot of themes of inevitability that are going through, of just like, this technology is inevitable. Nothing's actually inevitable. Like, we can actually just choose to create the world the way we want to create it. We just need to actually like push and fight for it. Like, you know, when I think about education, let's go down to like elementary and high school level. Like, I don't want to be like replacing teachers with computers. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. You know, I'm sure we all had that like one favorite teacher that we loved. For me, it was my high school chemistry teacher. Like, she was amazing. She like really taught me how to think and encouraged me to do all these crazy things. But like, imagine a world where this technology is used to give all our teachers superpowers so that they can become the teacher that's teaching you the way that's most effective for you, that they can add humanity to a bunch of the things that they're teaching. It's not just by rote by this rock that can speak to us. But I do think that, like, I think we need to figure out what that symbiosis is going to look like. Like, how do we get into this world where I don't think thinking about how to lock AI out of education is going to be the solution, but I think it's going to be like, what are the things that like humans are? I'm optimistic in humanity. I think we'll always find those things that like we are one step beyond what the AI can do, whether it be creativity, whether it be compassion, whether it be all these things, and trying to figure out like, how do we teach people the fundamentals they need so that they can exist in this world and sort of like use this as a tool and not a replacement mechanism. So it's not like a concrete answer, it's more of a philosophical answer of just like, we can choose to live in this world where these systems are augmenting us and not replacing us, and augmenting our thinking, like enabling us to think in more creative and bigger ways, because they've sort of like removed some barriers for us. Like, I like to think a lot about how it's easier to edit than it is to create in some cases. Like, maybe these systems, maybe that's the position that we need to take. I don't know. There's no clear answer here, but those are the philosophies that at least will like run through my head when I think about it.
So look, in the interest of time, what I'd like to do, Joe, I see your hands up, but let's have you participate in when we give the beta, when we give the conference wrap up. I'd like to hear from Doc Searles. Doc, I saw you on the call and you stepped away and you're back. I'd like your comment.
Oh my God. Well, first of all, great to see you, Raffi. I'm sorry I missed 90% of your talk. we have a dead air conditioner here and it's 92 degrees outside, and the guy's outside the window here and he's needing my help, and it's very complicated because he's using illegal R22 Freon as a favor to us. It's a perfect example of how people are helping people in ways that aren't going to show up in any database. So but it's what people do, right? Anyway, I have several thoughts. One is on the ethics thing. I think our chance to change what the bigs are doing, what Microsoft and OpenAI with OpenAI and Amazon and all of them are doing, is about zero. But I think our chance to do something completely new in the open source and personal space where Kwaai sits is enormous. The problem is there aren't many tracks in the snow to follow. I mean, we're kind of alone here. I've said before, and everybody else here has heard this, but you haven't yet, Raffi, is that it looks to me, being as old as I am, like 1974. It's like when all we had were mainframes, and all we had was mainframe mentality, and PCs were an oxymoron. And personal AI is oxymoronic right now. And it's like, why would you want that? You've got all these gigantic services, and they're wonderful. They do incredible things for us. And we haven't even thought about the incredible things that they could do for us that have nothing to do with having crawled the entire internet for all the bullshit that's in there, right? I mean, what about our own health and finances and property and and appointments and contacts and the things that actually matter to us in our daily lives, and making decisions around that? That's a greenfield. It's a gigantic greenfield. It's as big as the PC greenfield was, but it's early. It's really early, and it's very hard to get investment. It's hard to get investment because the VCs are all looking right now, especially at B2B, because they can see the money there. So that's one thought. But I think we're totally in the right place. I think Kwaai is in an excellent place, and so that's A. B is about universities. I put this in a tweet. This is in the chat. Somebody tweeted this, about how, what happens if you take a medieval institution and added a sports franchise and a hedge fund and a resort for teenagers all at once. That's kind of what they are. And I've now had affiliations with 4 universities that never would have let me in as a student, but I've been kind of embedded in there to see how it's done on the inside. And bureaucracy and money run the show. I mean, they just do. And the flywheels of business as usual. And it's very hard to hire anybody in a position of power that isn't a postdoc or hasn't already been famous for something else. So it's tough. It's all tough. But you just look for the edges where you can get in. I'm thinking right now, and I just thought of this, Reza, because I haven't gotten a response from Clay Shirky yet at NYU, but he runs AI for NYU. So we invite him to speak here, like Raffi just did. That's what we'll do. I'll invite him to speak. He'll do that, and then you can hit him up for the beta program. So you go after the individuals. That's the case. It. Right now I'm preparing for VRM Day and IIW, which is the last week in October. It's the Internet Identity Workshop, and it's mostly just geeks that get together and work on stuff. And it's a very leveraged conference. It's an unconference. There's no speakers, no panels, nothing. It's just the sponsors buy food and whiteboards and stuff like that. And it's very leveraged. And Reza's been there, maybe some other people on this call. I know some of you have. But we're very close with a standard called P7012 for the IEEE, which we can implement just anyway. All it is it reverses the flow of consent, and it only is contract. Instead of we're consenting to your terms, website or web service, they consent to ours, only they don't just consent to it, they sign a contract. And the contract sits at a neutral site, which will be Customer Commons. That's just like Creative Commons is for copyright. And most websites and services are not hostile to your privacy for the most part. And so we can do a wheat chaff move on those. And so that's going to be a topic at IIW as well. So, but anyway, okay. I've nothing more specific to add. I've just said too much already. So
thanks so much, Myra. Now the tough task of getting us back on track, back on schedule with the rest of our agenda. Thank you so much.
I'm the derailer in chief. I'm sorry. Okay.
Any last Comments, Raffi?
No, thank you for everything you're doing. Keep building.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your talk. It was great. All right. So let's see. I believe we have some updates from the working groups.
Yeah. So the first one up is going to be Sam Johnston to give us an update. Sam, on the PIOS. That'll be great.
Good morning. I'm back from European summer vacation back in Vancouver. There's been some good progress this week. In particular, our meeting yesterday, we resolved some of the we're getting more and more contributors getting on board. So every week I'm onboarding 2 or 3 contributors, which is great. And so we worked through some of the questions like how do we do short URL redirector and do it securely, and so Patricia's working on that, and then we've got Robert's been working on he's implemented passkey authentication, which is great. So then we've got further into how you do the API authentication between the front end and back end. If you can just, while you're going there, give me the ability to share, please, Reza. The other we have I still don't have it. I'll let you work on that. The other thing that's going on, so we have Python dependency management, but we don't have Node dependency management. So that is being added at the moment as well, which is really good news. Thanks, Reza. The other thing is that the assistant is coming along nicely. They're kind of, we kind of had this almost like a race where kind of I got ahead a bit, and then I had holidays, and they've got ahead a bit, and so they've been implementing a whole lot of really interesting things. Like, for example, storing all of the conversations, the messages in the OS, which is not something I considered to do. So they've implemented that, which is good. And now I'm looking at how do we do that sensibly and scalably. We had a discussion yesterday about how caching works at all the different levels. There was the reason I asked to share. There was a couple of other issues in the background that actual GitHub issues that have been raised. There's one that talks about that Karsten raised about the project icon and logo, which and potentially causing confusion. And what I did at the start, just to kind of get it done and crack on, was that I fed AI. I think I fed Adobe Firefly the Kwaai logo and said, come up with something for an OS a bit more kind of network connected kind of thing, and it came up with the logo that you saw on PIOS before. And so he had raised the question of whether kind of subordinate projects and kind of different brands for upstream and downstream didn't really take a very strong position on it. There was a discussion that I think AZ hosted on the product and project call on, I guess, Wednesday. So what I went about doing, and partly pragmatically, because I have a startup package with Web Summit in Lisbon. We weren't able to go last year, so it's carried over. And the project I had in mind for it, I'm looking now at instead kind of donating it to PIOS, which would give us a stand and branding and various other activations and things at that event, which is kind of the European, almost global, kind of one of the global startup events, in addition to TechCrunch Disrupt, which I'll be attending next month as well. So what I came up with, now I didn't have vectors. AZ, you've got a hand raised. Is that related to this discussion? Did I misquote you?
Sam, we have this as an agenda item for the next meeting, so this may be too much detail to get into. Yeah, so it's going to be one of the 3 items to discuss, and maybe that may be a better conversation for the after party as opposed to details. Oh, this is good. All right, go ahead.
Well, so the reason I asked to share is because we do have I know we've got a wider audience here, right? So I want everybody to see this and kind of maybe solicit some wider kind of feedback. So what I have done here, so I need vectors for that event, by the way, and I don't have vectors for the AI generated thing. It just gave me a PNG. So I kind of already was thinking I need a logo with vectors. And so this is what I came up with here. I outsourced stuff. But this, I feel, is a lot more personal than the existing. I don't think I have the existing one to hand, but the existing one was very technical, kind of like a tree, like the Kwaai tree with like wires, kind of, like network kind of stuff. And so this gives a nod to a very clear nod to Kwaai and the tree, but it's also more personal with the face, and it's more natural, I think, than that kind of hard kind of networky type thing.
Yeah, I like it. So I think it's good.
Yeah. And here's examples of it in use, right? So
in many companies, you distinguish between the corporate brand and the product brand. Like you've got Microsoft and you've got Windows, and their logos are very different. So when you think about PIOS, which is an output of the Kwaai organization, it need not have the same branding. I mean, it could be reminiscent and it could have a nod in there, but the PIOS needs to have its own branding. So fantastic.
I think that tree is kind of the nod.
Yeah, that's great. And
yeah, that was the idea, was to say, right, this has, I mean, look, without my involvement in Kwaai, I never would have, started development of this thing at the start of the year. And then obviously we've got some other contributors starting to come on board now. And so I really wanted to leave that in there. But the outline of the current, I wish I could just bring it up. I don't actually have it.
Cool. Let's actually dive deep into that, in the after party. I like that. Why don't we have an update from the front end, from the assistant? So if Balaji's on or Cyan's on, why don't you give us an update? Look, we're all itching. We're expecting this software by Tuesday to be able to play with it. So, Cyan, are you up to give us an update?
Sure. So the last week we were working on integrating everything that we have in the OS, which is basically creating the assistants from within the front end and creating the personas. We will also doing some management regarding the files that are collected for each assistant. So now users can delete and update files in the knowledge base. And that's pretty much it, all the things that we have been working. Well, the installation process, it's almost done. And there's a new front end that we're going to be showing on Tuesday. It's just the mockups, but it's the first proposal for the new updated version of the Pi Assistant.
Fantastic. Okay, thanks so much. I'm just going to give a quick share here of my screen. And just show you what's where did that go? That one. Okay. So most of you know the GitHub repo. Okay. This is where people go when they let's wait for that to populate. Yeah. This is where people go now if they want to get access to the code. And many of our partners that are waiting for the beta said, no, we need something now, because, well, the semester started in many colleges already. And so over the summer, Cornell already took this code and they followed the installation instructions and got the chatbot up and running in their own environment. And in fact, in the Cornell Medical School implementation, they have it as a lab assistant. And it is populated by all of their lab notes, and they've also they've requested a connector from Slack so that Slack conversations can go in and go into the database. That's an interesting feedback we got from letting the code out into the wild. Okay, so in order to run this in your own environment, you need a GPU server. And many companies don't, many establishments don't have a powerful enough server. Really grateful to Joe Suppers from SwissVault and our colleagues at iBridge for volunteering to say, hey, we will host the back end during the period of the beta and for research. So that's fantastic. And in fact, they took this, they followed these instructions. They've now got the same code with the same data running in their data center. It runs anywhere between 7 and 10 times faster than it does in AWS, and it's cheaper. So this is exciting. How they're doing it, well, we can talk about that separately. But like, this stuff's coming. Everyone's waiting for the beta. The POC is currently one bot to one server. Maybe you can squeeze 2 in there. but what the beta offers is a complete multi-tenant solution. So you can have a large number of bots, let's say 100 bots. And when a user request comes in, it switches between those bots. And so we're not scaling the hardware by the number of bots. We're scaling the hardware dependent on the number of user sessions, concurrent user sessions. Okay, so that is the great innovation that everyone's waiting for. I'm going to give you an update on, we just this morning got a request and they filled in the form from University of San Francisco. So they're going to be a beta partner. We hope to get 30 colleges across the US. We've got 26 applicants so far. So look, it's filling up quickly. We need more. I'd really prefer for us to be oversubscribed and then undersubscribed. And then for the equity of it, if you're a community college or you're not a deep-pocketed college, you don't have a D1 football team to subsidize your P&L, then thanks so much for iBridge and SwissVault for offering to underwrite that infrastructure. Okay, so let's get back. I'm going to stop sharing there. Let's get a quick update from the IEEE conference. I know we've only got 7 minutes left, but Joe, why don't you tell us what was going on at the IEEE conference?
We had applied to the IEEE to present at their conference for what they refer to as the Innovation Challenge. And we applied, and surprisingly, we presented on Tuesday this week in San Diego, and we won, and was ecstatic about having accomplished that. Everyone recognized the benefits of our hardware, which reduces the energy costs, and our software.
Again, thanks to all of us for coming in, for pitching, for sharing your solutions. At the end, it was a hard decision.
Everyone is striving to make a difference in sustainability. Let's hope, let's continue to inspire each other and uplift each other.
I'm showing some video of them winning the AI Startup Challenge. So well done on that. This is fantastic.
For pitching, for sharing. At the end,
stop presenting there.
That's great. We were shocked. I was shocked and delighted at the same time. And this is kind of like hit the launch button for SwissVault. I mean, we've been out there in the marketplace for past several years. We did come out of stealth mode last year, hooked up with iBridge and saw the opportunity that was there, working with them with their GPUs in their data center. But I go back to the dial-up days when I was deploying dial-up networks around the globe to help people get connected to the internet. And in my mind, this is almost like not dial-up 2.0, but network 2.0, because I see how we brought to the masses the internet in the early days. And I'm seeing this as almost a rerun of what we did before, where this time we're deploying equipment that would be housed in multiple locations, perhaps even on residential properties where you'd have your own NAS system, similar to a cable box that is your personal AI with storage. SwissVault is really a data storage hardware and software company. We recognize that we have to figure out a way to more efficiently store the tremendous amounts of data that's being generated that's necessary for these LLMs. I don't know if anyone's really addressing it on the storage side from an efficiency standpoint. They just keep throwing more and more hardware at it. But we're trying to relook at this and come up with a better way. We think that we have found that, which has been acknowledged by the IEEE by virtue of winning this contest. So we are very excited about this. We're hoping that what we can do is provide a platform to support Kwaai and its operation with companies and also universities, colleges, community colleges that can't really accommodate the Kwaai platform in the campus IT department. Because we're finding that some of the IT areas on campus are unable or unwilling to really support the Kwaai platform. They want to kind of see it first. And we're giving the professors an opportunity to really run this platform outside of the university on our infrastructure using our software and hardware. So we're delighted to be a part of this, and I think it's very exciting. We did this week fact, just yesterday, got invited to the New Jersey Big Data Alliance Conference. It's going to be on October 10th at Keene University. New Jersey wants to be leaders in big data and at the governor's level, AI research. And so we think that this is going to be a launch pad for Kwaai here in New Jersey to become a leader in what it's trying to accomplish. So we're very excited about all that. And thank you, Reza.
Thanks so much. Let's hear from new members. Myra, who do we have at new to the call? I saw Setya, you spoke earlier on.
I'll let you pick on people.
Okay, I'm going to pick on people. Put your hands up if you've not spoken. Otherwise, I'm going to pick on you. Jean-Frederic.
You had a question, yeah.
Yeah. Zucker Scharf, we'd love to hear from you. Let's see. I'm going to pick on you if you. There we go.
Go ahead, John.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. As you can notice, I'm French, so I've got a terrible accent and an unpalatable first name. So just call me Jeff. It's way easier. And what am I meant to say?
Just who you are and what brings you to Kwaai.
So I'm a game designer at the moment. I've been working mostly, well, on a good amount of games. I had a small experience in research AI at the Sony CSL in Paris, which has been kind of the place of my dreams because that's where the talking head experiments happened. And it was seminal for AI research. I've got more than a huge interest for all the topics. And what you're doing at Kwaai is amazing. I mean, and I'm completely biased. I'm super anxious about what's happening in the world at the moment. I'm super excited and super frustrated not to be able to involve full time in AI research. But I'm far from having the qualifications there.
We'd love to have your input on the front end, on the design of the UI. In fact,
I will add you to that channel, Jean.
Thanks so much, Myra. Yep. Okay, I see Aram's put his calendar on, his camera on rather. Let's hear from you, Aram.
Hi, I'll just say hello. I'm Aram Zuckerscharf. I'm here because Michael Grossman invited me, and because I'm interested in this type of work and this type of technology. My specialty is privacy engineering. I work on that primarily for my main job, where I deal with compliance, ethics, and all sorts of stuff along those lines. I also do a lot of front-end development and work on web standards on behalf of my employer, and because I am passionate about that. So I'm just very interested in what's going on and looking to find more.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Aram.
Welcome, Aram. I think we're at the end, Reza. So
yeah. Okay. Well, look. Thanks so much. Let's just do a quick dismount. This week was an extremely busy week. We had a lot of great interactions with folks, a lot of new members, and a lot of conversations about the beta. The beta is our preoccupation at the moment. We've made lots of promises that we're going to have the beta ready by the end of August. Hey, this is the last day of August. Always tomorrow, the last day of August. But anyway, on Tuesday, we're looking forward to seeing the Pi Assistant, the beta form of it, running on in the working group meeting, the Pi Assistant working group meeting, and then shortly after that, it might take a week, maybe 2 weeks before we deploy it in the iBridge data center. We deploy it on campus in 1 or 2 campuses, and then start rolling them out one at a time before we go and deploy to all of them. But this is an exciting time. Gosh, we've done something. We've created something. You've created something, and it's going to change the world. It's not going to change the world immediately, but we're first going to deploy in academia within a collection of academic institutions across the country. There's 1 or 2 outside of the US that have applied as well, and that will be a great testing ground for more people to kick the tires on personal AI. 30 universities. We're hoping to get 30 professors in each university. So that is close on 1,000 bots straight off the bat. And then the student to teacher ratio is 1 to 100, let's say, over a period of a semester. So now you've got an audience of 100,000 users kicking the tires on your software. If that gives you a bit of unease, it should. It should. So we need to be very delicate about this. And hey, I said, Sam, you put your camera on and you are feeling nervous.
Yes.
So speaking about bringing users in from outside, one of the things I forgot to mention was I'm going to start posting PIOS related news to r/PIOS. If there's any Redditors in here, then I'd be happy to have you jump in there. Sorry, Reza, I just forgot to mention.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely perfect. Okay, so look, we have an after party. Can someone post the link for the after party? This is where we're already on 3 minutes over. It's where we go and we pick 2 or 3 topics. One topic from the guest speaker brought up, and then maybe a couple more topics, and then we hack on that for an hour afterwards. So there it is. It's the Kwaai Weekly Idea Exchange, and it's starting right now. Okay, so thanks so much, everybody, for participating.
And congratulations, President, for getting Rutgers this week.
And we got Rutgers. That's right.
So long, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Anyone? Okay, name that tune.
Good week, Reza. And
Okay,
it's great to see you again.
that was great. Okay.
Goodbye.